Yo, we got crazy new information revealed about Vegapunk Joy Boy and just how insanely powerful his haki was, and of course we see what happens after the Straw Hats have left Egghead and the Gorosei behind. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Chill the parking within and smash that like button if you enjoy watching One Piece reviews like this one and want to keep them coming. Make this the video you join the Nakama by subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you don't miss future One Piece reviews and updates. And now without further ado, let's jump into it, spoilers and all. So if you'll remember, the last chapter was insane, with ancient robot Emmet unleashing some Joy Boy stored haki inside of him that quite literally changed everything in the series. Not only did the haki blast take down countless marines, even the Gorosei reverted back into their human forms and were sent back to Marijoa. Just how many of these stored away haki blasts can we expect to see in the future? That's the real question. And for crying out loud, even Imu-sama dropped to their knees and trembled, saying Joy Boy. Imu pulled a green bull against Shanks. That's how crazy this haki was. We also saw a silhouette of Joy Boy wearing the straw hat in a flashback where he told Emmet that he tied a knot of quote-unquote the greatest of haki and locked it inside his body. So he definitely was not a modest dude, at least according to that translation. He told him to use it when the time was right, and he decided to use it to protect the new era Joy Boy Luffy, and to what spectacular effect he used it indeed. This chapter is called a 2-week void because we'll be covering some important flashback stuff as we'll see, as well as current happenings. In this cover story, we got Yamato's pilgrimage again, and this time Denjiro punishes the kids by having them eat Oden with the person they hate. And it's wholesome to see that they become friends with Yamato after all of that cover story drama. So the chapter proper starts in Egghead, so it seems to be also an Egghead wrap-up chapter in a way as it transitions to the Elbaf arc. But this really seems to be the last one, I promise. In Egghead, we see that all Marines have fainted, including the Vice Admirals. Snake is still inside the bubble and trying to wake them up quickly to go after Straw Hat. However, I think we all know that the Straw Hat escape is complete now and we're only moving forward from here. On the Elbaf ship, Gear 5 Luffy gives thanks to the giant robot for its help, but there's no reaction from Emmet. As was implied last chapter, he fulfilled his arc and purpose by unleashing that insane haki blast at the right time and helping the new era Joy Boy and his crew escape. He was definitely the MVP of the last chapter. Dory and Broggy say they can't feel the enemy's presence at all since they all fainted. And Dory adds some very interesting commentary when he says that Conqueror's haki may be even stronger than Red Hair's haki, end quote. I think most of us assumed as much, perhaps even assuming that Joy Boy has the strongest haki ever to date, but it's still hype to hear even someone so close to Shanks say this. And keep in mind, most people would agree that Shanks' haki is probably the strongest present day haki we've seen in the series. So saying someone's might be even stronger is high praise indeed, but also it's hyping up Shanks at the same time because he's not even completely sure if it is stronger even after what the haki release did. So Joy Boy is hyped up while Shanks is subtly hyped up too. I like that especially because Shanks is still very relevant to the story. He's definitely a fan favorite, so we don't want him getting downright disrespected. Let's just hope Oda doesn't have Blackbeard off-screen him now. So the Elbaf ship and the Thousand Sunny are sailing together to Elbaf. No surprise there, we've been expecting them to go to Elbaf for a long time now, even before the Giants came. Still, it doesn't make it any less hype, especially for my boy Usopp. We get some cool scenes, including the heartwarming one of Child Bonnie sleeping on top of Kuma after everything. Then we also get Zoro relaxed, Usopp crying while he greets Dory and Broggy from the Sunny, and Luffy's wrinkled form lying on Nami's lap. Nami lap pillow for the win. One Piece has never been big on romantic love interests and focusing on them, but subtle things like this make me think Luffy and Nami will at least have a kid after a time skip or something later on. Pirate King Luffy's very own ace, if you will. Might even have the same name if you think about it. Now you might think I'm reading too much into this, and possibly I am, but we'll see. I've done enough romantic relationship videos here on YouTube to know mangakas usually throw subtle things in that are not obvious until they are in retrospect. Sanji for his part stands alone looking at Vegapunk's body that is lying on a futon. Sanji says, "I really don't feel comfortable with what you said back there, Vegapunk. Is this how you wanted things to turn out? I didn't catch you clearly, but you said some crazy lines," end quote. And don't worry, we'll get back to that later in the chapter and what those crazy lines actually were. Then we fittingly jump into a Vegapunk flashback. The flashback takes place 2 weeks ago on Egghead, so that points to our 2-week void title. In the flashback, Shaka discovered that there was a change in the data from the power plant, so he showed the information to Vegapunk and Pythagoras. He said, "Please look at this. There are some changes in the particle number density and neutron flux. The energy being used on the Seraphim have been increased gradually. If this was a mistake, it's a very serious issue," end quote. Pythagoras responds, "Huh? This is different from the data we recorded." To which Shaka says the changes were cleverly hidden in records. So Vegapunk concludes that the culprit is one of the Vegapunks. They go to Lilith first, since she represents evil after all, so it kind of makes sense. Shaka then says only the 3 of them have the perfect alibi. An enormous amount of energy has been stolen. Vegapunk says one of the remaining 4 is the culprit, especially Lilith. ... Poor Lilith. It's nice that not only was she vindicated, but she's the one who also gets to be a Straw Hat now. Pythagoras then says, "That's why you want to turn our brain on stealth mode," and Shaka responds, "Correct. If we upload this experience to Punk Records, Lilith..." And then he corrects himself, "The culprit will also be alerted," end quote. It's like Oda incorporated Among Us into his manga with this whole plot point. That's definitely the vibe it gives off. Then after investigating the matter together, 1 week later they discovered the real culprit. Pythagoras is the one to say, oh no, I have found the culprit, it's York." Props to them for being logical and actually investigating objectively, because it's clear that they heavily suspected Lilith at first. Vegapunk and Shaka are shocked, just saying, "What?" Pythagoras discovered that the information York uploaded to Punk Records were fake memories and that she manipulated Den Den Mushi videos too. Shaka also found records of York manipulating Sea Beast weapons, and keep that in mind because that'll come up later. It makes sense that they found out about her if you think about it, since they're all smart, but 3 heads are better than 1. Still, it leads me to question other things, as we'll get into in a bit. Vegapunk says, "But why? And sorry, Lilith." He says, "It was my mistake to use greed to create a person," end quote. It's a funny statement since it's kind of predictable. Like, he could have just used positive traits to base the characters on if that was an option, but you kind of gotta expect some not so good behavior when you use greed and even evil as the basis. We're lucky Lilith turned out as she did, honestly. They also hear the recordings of York's communications with the 5 elders from data Vegapunk could recover. So they knew the world government was behind this. York, we're told, used a white Den Den Mushi to send messages to Marijoa saying Dr. Vegapunk is studying the Void Century. Vegapunk now understood why Cypherpole visited them so many times recently. A day later, so 6 days from the present for those not doing the math, Leloucia is erased. After hearing about what happened, Vegapunk actually deduces that York stole a portion of the Mother Flame, and then she sent it to the world government using a Sea Beast weapon. I love to see his Sherlock skills at work, and that explains the Sea Beast manipulation brought up earlier. Vegapunk then concludes, so the world government possesses an ancient weapon. And here's what bugs me. He knew the world government was behind the Leloucia thing, and he still refused to label the world government as evil to the world in his broadcast. I just don't understand it personally. He should have taken a firmer stance in the broadcast, if you ask me, and he should have made people understand how corrupt the world government is and how they're the enemy to the people. Definitely would have made Dragon's recruitment a lot easier. Shaka suggests capturing York, but Vegapunk says it's too late. No matter what York's goal is, she proved that she is useful to the world government thanks to the Mother Flame. So the other Vegapunks who learned about the Void Century will be erased. Prepare a ship, he says, so the inhabitants of Egghead can escape, but that is not an option for us. All marine bases already got secret orders to arrest us. They will chase us to the end of the world, so we will end up dying anyway no matter where. But we have the devices that Ohara didn't have 22 years ago. We have a way to broadcast our voices far and wide. The closer I get, the darker it is to see. What exactly is the world government? I will not let my death be in vain, end quote. Guess he didn't account for Luffy's bodyguard service when he was saying they'd all die. But again, I totally agree with what he's saying here about broadcasting the truth and not dying in vain, but I feel like he could have went so much harder on the world government in the broadcast. Vegapunk adds that there's one more technology that must be protected, the Kumafuto, which translates to clothed or cloud plus craft. It's the machine to create island clouds, the bottle in the middle of Egghead. He says we must save it since island clouds can be very useful for humanity if the world sinks like he expects it to. After, we see Vegapunk modifying the inside of the ancient robot to house the transmission Den Mushi. One day York finds him and asks him what he's doing. So you got a traitor asking you what you're doing while you're doing stuff behind her back because you know she's a traitor in the first place. Intense situation, but it explains why York figured out it was in the ancient robot later on. Vegapunk tells the traitor, I'm trying to make the robot move with the Mother Flame. And York says, I hope the Mother Flame will be perfected soon. Vegapunk obviously knows why she hopes for it. To himself, Vegapunk thinks, the fact that the Mother Flame is still imperfect is our only hope, since he knows it'll end up in the wrong hands because of York. Then 2 days ago from the present, Vegapunk, Shaka, and Pythagoras do the recording for the worldwide broadcast. That's why only the 3 of them were in the video. So during the broadcast, Vegapunk knew all about York, the corrupt, destructive world government, and all. So we gotta keep that in mind. It is only after the recording that they wipe their memories of what happened during the past 2 weeks. They pull a Lelouch Lamperouge on themselves. This way, like Lelouch, they can keep their plan from being exposed, knowing that the knowledge about York being a traitor will be wiped away as well. Vegapunk says the disaster that is going to happen is precisely what will bring about our victory. When he wakes up from the memory erasure, he finds a note left from himself to himself saying that their research was leaked to the world government and that they will die soon. The note says, however, during this 2-week void, we have already prepared a countermeasure. Please believe in yourself and die, end quote. That's pretty epic right there. So yes, the plan was to die from the beginning and for the broadcast to go off as it did. Vegapunk from the beginning was ready to make that sacrifice and to reveal what the scholars of Ohara didn't have the technology to. The note also says, and one more thing, ... Suddenly, the scene changes to the moment when Vegapunk with Sanji, Atlas, and Frankie was riding the Vegatank 8 toward the lower part of Egghead when Marines attacked the island. This is when he tells Sanji that he never intended to go back up, and that he will remain on the lower part of Egghead. He says that if possible, he wants Sanji to leave him to die. And knowing what we know now, it makes sense why he's saying that. He's trusting his self that left him that note. He continues saying, I feel like if I die, something important will happen, end quote. And that sounds so funny and crazy without knowing the context, I must say. Sanji says, of course, it would cause an uproar. I can't let you die. Vegapunk also says, and also ... Sanji asks, what is it ... Then we jump to the present, but don't worry, Oda will come back to Sanji and Vegapunk's conversation, but for now we're just getting these cliffhanger teases, so just wait. The giant warrior pirates are celebrating now in the present. They're celebrating that they are with their friends. Here we see giant warrior pirates, but not the full Straw Hat crew. The giant warrior pirates are saying, woo, a toast to the reunion with our friends. We finally get the payoff of Usopp celebrating on top of Dory's hand. Broggy, for his part, is grabbing Luffy, still in his wrinkled form, and Chopper is on Broggy's beard. All of them are happy, but Luffy can't celebrate anything since he can't move in this wrinkled old man form. He says, and I quote, wait, celebrate later, end quote. And then I'm happy to see Usopp finally say, woo, to Elbaf, the land of my dream. We waited so long for this, and now it's happening. And as Teki and I talked about when we were doing the latest episode of the One Piece Virgin podcast, it's about time for Usopp to shine. He's been largely overlooked lately, relatively speaking, not getting to enjoy any big wins against powerful characters. We both think and hope that they will make up for that here in the Elbaf arc, which has to be the Usopp-focused arc. In response to the excited Usopp, Broggy and Dory laugh. While we watch the celebration, we can finally read what Vegapunk wanted to tell Sanji in Egghead Island finally. Vegapunk said, oh, and about the One Piece, I wish that it will be you guys who obtain it, end quote. So there you have it. Vegapunk is voting for the right team and did help them get off the island, but I still think he could have went after the world government harder in the broadcast and made it easier for Dragon and others to take them down eventually. Let me know your thoughts on that and on this chapter. Smash that like button if you're excited for Elbaf. If you enjoyed this one, that you won't want to miss this video on the screen that YouTube thinks you'll like. Let me know if YouTube is right. Remember to like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.